Welcome to Fridays with Father Geckle, a weekly show covering tradition, culture, and news on the Traditionalist Podcast. Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to another episode on Fridays with Father Geckle. This is the second best day of the week. It's Friday, and we're here to hopefully make it a little better for you. And that's the hope. You get to be the judge of that, whether that's true or not. But we've got quite an interesting show today, I think. We've got a couple cultural things to discuss. The point of this show is to talk about tradition, culture, and news, as we say in the intro. And the last couple of weeks I've been mainly talking about the news, and so I thought I'd add in today a little bit more of the culture, some things with regard to that. We'll see how that goes. At the end, I've got a new segment that I want to introduce that has to do with music, and that's something that's very important to me, or it's something I enjoy very much, and something that's very cultural, obviously. So that's going to be the final segment. I'm introducing a new segment that's going to be like music appreciation, and mainly classical music, but also sacred music as well. And that's something I'll talk about more when we get to the end of this show. So stick around for that. I think it'll be fun. It'll be fun for me. I'll enjoy it. Hopefully you enjoy it too. But first and foremost, I had a bit of a misrepresentation last week when I talked about coffee. And I talked about the mugs. I said that the Catholic Family Podcast mug was my favorite mug, and that was a bit of a misrepresentation. This, my friends, is the ultimate coffee mug right here. Found this on Amazon. Deus Vult. Deus Vult. This is the Crusader. This is a Crusader's coffee mug right here. It's got the Crusader on both sides. It's got the handle. It's heavy. It feels like you're holding something substantial. It feels like something a Crusader would drink out of. So this, my friends, is the best mug out there. Well, this is the best mug that I possess here. I love this kind of stuff, the Templar stuff, the Knight stuff, Crusader stuff. That's some of my favorite genre of stuff. I don't know even what to say with that. But this, my friends, this is the ultimate coffee mug. And I don't know about you, but don't you hate the coffee mugs that have the tiny, tiny, tiny handle that you can't fit your hand through? You grip a coffee mug and it's piping hot and you're tired in the morning and you can't fit your fingers and I don't like those coffee mugs. I like, if I'm holding my coffee mug, I want to be able to grip it like a gorilla and have it comfortable. This mug does that. Anyway, that's a little fun thing. Right now I'm drinking the sad thing that is known, or that is decaf coffee, because, well, I'm recording this not on Friday morning, but Thursday evening. So I'm not going to fill myself with caffeine late at night. Anybody here like decaf coffee? I drink it. Yeah, I don't like it that much, but I like it more than tea. We'll say that. For evenings, decaf is the way to go. I like it more than tea. Decaf coffee is some say it's an abomination. I don't say it's an abomination, but some people say it's an abomination. But I enjoy it in certain times. But let's get on to a very, very important thing here that has to do with some of us here at the Traditionalists. As you know, if you've been listening, there has been a little bit of rivalry between me and Eric, also known as the Caveman, Eric Kosovich. And there's a little bit of Ohio-Colorado rivalry that's been going on. And I think we can put this to rest today, because in Eric's show, not this past week, but the week before, he graciously conceded that Ohio is better than Colorado, because he talked about J.D. Vance, how he was wrong and how his opinions were wrong, etc., and how this great politician, it seems, has come out of Ohio, and Colorado has nothing like it to show for themselves. And so in this way, Eric has conceded the competition, and I, being the gracious gentleman that I am, will graciously accept his concession that Ohio is much better than Colorado. So Eric, thank you for being truthful and being honest. I'm glad we can put this rivalry, this contest, to rest once and for all. You know, you didn't really have a chance to begin with, especially since you said you don't like half of the state anyway, because it's just like Kansas. Insulting the good people of Kansas, I might add. But I'm going to be gracious here. I'm going to be a gentleman, and I'm going to be gracious. and say, Eric, well done. You put up a good fight, doomed to failures from the beginning, but well fought. And I would say as well, in addition to this, let's not even get into Arkansas versus Colorado, because Arkansas is better than Ohio. Arkansas is better than Ohio. I'm sorry for all of my family and friends that are there, but Arkansas is better than Ohio. And a fortiori, Arkansas is much, much better than Colorado. I don't even think we need to get into that because it's so obvious. So, Eric, I respect you. Colorado has wonderful mountains. I love the wonderful mountains of Colorado, so I will say that good about it. But that's enough for that. I'm glad we can get that nasty business out of the way here, and we can move on to the fun stuff. We can move on to a couple memes. I love the memes. This is one of the things that's so funny about our culture is how much sense or how much of our culture gets, I don't know if you say culture gets expressed in our memes, but it's, there's some good ones here I've got to share. First of all, how many of our viewers here enjoy the movie The Princess Bride? Now, I have not watched it in a long time, but it's a classic. It's such a good movie. There's so many good lines in that movie. And this is a meme that somebody put out here of the Democrats protesting defunding USAID. And you have that scene where there's the poison in the one cup, and you've got the Vicini. You were trying to take what I have rightfully stolen. I can't do his accent. I'm not even going to try because it'd be sad and despicable. This is one of my favorite memes of the week. There is also, this one came up the week before that I found rather funny. AOC finds ICE has detention centers on every street. And if you're just listening, it's an ice machine, an ice dispenser, and it's clipped with AOC on that time that she went to the border and stood in a parking lot next to a fence and started crying for publicity. It's kind of funny. It's very funny. ICE detention centers on every street. You know, I disagree very much with Matt here on the whole AOC is actually coming around and that she's come. I really don't think she's ever going to come around. I think she's very, very entrenched in her position, and I don't think she has a lot of sense. I had a conversation with somebody this weekend. We were talking about this and other things, saying, you know, a lot of these, the liberal politicians and influencers and others, they might be dumb. They might not be very smart, but they're very clever. And there's certainly a difference. And I think AOC is clever now she's gotten where she is, but I don't think that she's very smart, very intelligent. That's kind of what that meme is making fun of. Now, this is probably the last one for now here. But this isn't really a meme. This is just kind of a post that kind of points out just the silliness of this outrage, this fake outrage over the investigations that Doge is doing into the institutions, the establishment. And so this reads, the Dems say, we need 80,000 IRS agents to audit your $600 Venmo payment. And then in response to this, the Republicans say, there are over 100 billion annual entitlement payments to people without Social Security numbers. And the Dems' response is, auditing is extremely dangerous to our democracy. It's so true. This is exactly what they've been doing and screaming about it ever since Doge has started working on investigating things. And it's I think this one kind of points it out pretty well, just how silly that whole mindset is and that reaction is, the fake outrage. And that's something that's been covered in a couple of our shows here this past week or week and a half. Is just how much government waste there has been in our government, and it's good to see the receipts here. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. I'm going to get to reading some of the comments from last week's episode. I'll get in, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. But this is something that it's nice to see the changes that are kind of happening in DC, and hopefully will continue and also be spread throughout the country, that there will be changes back to more of a common sense and more of a more accountability in our government, whether it's on a federal level or on the state level. Hopefully there will be a continuation of the war against the woke. War against the woke. That's been the battle the last couple years, probably going back to 2016 or well before that. I shouldn't say 2016, but I haven't been paying attention to politics a whole lot for very long. So to me, in my mind, it only goes back a couple years. But just the woke agenda and the woke war against everything, against the family, against children, against just everyone in businesses and in education and in entertainment. It's just been an all-out assault. And I hope that there's a response to that. And I think there is going to be a continual fight against the woke. And a lot of people are saying woke is dead. I hope so. I really hope so. And I think it is to a certain extent because they made this too personal. The left made this too personal. They went too far. They made it really personal with COVID. They made it too personal with the lockdowns. They made it too personal with the school boards. They made it too personal with January 6th. They just went too far. I think they were too arrogant and they went too far. And so there's this response from so many people because it wasn't just hurting them in their wallet, which that's personal too. But there's the liberal policies and funding all of these ridiculous things and the corruption and no accountability in the government is hurting people's pockets, their wallets. So in that sense, there's been a huge change in people's minds because they're seeing the fruit from the tree. They're promised all of these wonderful benefits and all this wonderful fruit from the woke tree, and they're getting nothing. They're getting nothing but more misery and more detrimental things. They're seeing that there's bad fruit, so they want to cut the tree down. And I think that's the right thing to do. And I really, really hope and pray that it continues because our government, our society is in such a bad trajectory. And this is something I was thinking about when I saw an article pop up and I had to skip it real quick because it was on my YouTube feed as I was looking for something or looking through some things, and it showed a very immodest picture. That's why I had to skip it over. But the heading, and I heard some other people talk about it, was, oh, the Super Bowl is coming and they're bringing back the commercials that the woke people banned, or they made a big deal about, which was like, very immodest women advertising things, in immodest swimsuits and things like that. And they were touting this as such a great thing that we're getting back to the normal American ways. And it got me thinking of the progression of this. It's so interesting because what we saw so much with the wokeness was just unnatural. The trans stuff, children and pretending that men are women and women are men, and killing babies, and let's move towards euthanasia. And it's just all of these things that are just unnatural and repugnant and disgusting. And now, because it was so unnatural and so opposed to our sense of what is right and good, even on a base level, there's been that rejection by, I think, the majority of people, the rejection of the unnatural, the rejection of the woke. And you're seeing that slide in culture back to more of a natural level. Now, I don't mean that like the natural law of God. I wish we were there, but not so much, not yet. And that's so clearly shown in what I'm talking about here, about saying how wonderful it is that we're getting back to showing half-dressed or not even half-dressed women on advertisements and shows and stuff. The indecency of that is praised. But it's praised because it's getting away from the unnatural and ugliness of the woke and getting back to good old America. I kind of put that in quotation marks because there's so many problems with good old America of the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s and such. But there is that return to what they see as what is natural. What is natural? There's beauty. I'm not going to get into a talk about modesty here. That's for another day, another platform. But the ugliness of the trans stuff, the woke stuff, is just ugly. It's just opposed to everything natural. And this return to what seems normal on a natural level, if we were just animals, if we just had our flesh, it would be like, yeah, that's a good thing. But it's not. It's not, because we're not just animals. We're not just flesh. We have a soul. There is a God. There's a natural law. There are commandments. And this is the kind of the three positions here. The unnatural, which many people are turning away from and rejecting and saying, I've had enough. This is just, I can't tolerate this anymore. Now they're swinging, the culture in general is swinging back to more of a natural way of looking at things. The natural attraction, the natural inclinations. But it can't stop there, because man by nature is inclined to sin. Man by nature is inclined to offend God and to vices and depravity. That's how we got to the unnatural stage, is unchecked fallen human nature. The only way to right the ship and for society to grow, for culture to be good and really promote the good of mankind and promote the good of society, is that it swing to the supernatural. That it swing to the supernatural, where we recognize God and His supreme dominion and rights, and our duties to acknowledge that, not just in some things that are popular, but in everything. It's not a buffet. Christianity is not a buffet. This country claims to be based on Christian values, but it's based on some Christian values. And when you pull that edifice apart, when you pull out the foundation of this edifice, this building, the rest is weakened and will eventually topple and fall. And the only way to have a solid foundation, to have a solid building, to have a solid society, is to be built on an entirely God-centered and Christian foundation. And so we need our society to keep swinging, to keep moving more and more away from the ugly and the sinful. Right now, it's kind of at an interesting place, not in the establishment, for sure, not in the universities, for sure, not in entertainment, for sure, but there's a movement. And it's an important time, I think, and that's why I think that shows like this and the podcasts and YouTube videos and having influencers that are good Catholics on these platforms is really important, so that we can help reach people and help direct them towards a better position, the supernatural, based on God and all of His laws, not just some of them. Now, I'm going to cut it there on that topic. I had to laugh. I joined a live stream last night, just briefly, and at one point I tried to say, I'm going to keep this short. And one of my parishioners from Missouri, he commented and kind of laughed about that, like, keep it short. Yeah, we love you, Father, but we know that's not going to happen. It made me laugh, and I always say it, but I unfortunately don't follow my resolutions there. So, okay, so we talked about how I made this personal, the culture shift. One of the things that's interesting, the shift, is obviously in food. And with Bobby Kennedy, that's something that's more and more people are becoming aware of it. I was very grateful and blessed to have parents that were interested in that growing up. So we didn't have the mainstream mentality about that. I bring this up because there's a little clip that I want to share here with regard to RFK, with regard to the food that we eat that isn't really food. And this is a little video clip, I saw it on Facebook, of the making cold cuts. I really hope not all cold cuts are made this way, but at least some of them are. Let's just share this. You can look at it. You can be disgusted with me. So let me share this and we'll play it right now. How deli meat is made. Poison in our colons is what age us and give us cancer. So I hope the volume isn't too high. I'm sorry if the volume's too high. I haven't quite figured out how that works on here. Still got to experiment with it. But anyway, if it's too high, just down. So they're mixing this up. A bunch of powdery stuff. It's pretty nasty. There's the red dye, it looks like, obviously. Doesn't that look appetizing? More red dye, which is banned now, thankfully. Or on its way to being banned. Yum, boy. Yuck. I had bologna last week. I'm sorry, Mom. Yes, I had bologna last week. I regretted it afterwards. I apologize. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't disappoint you too much. But that's so nasty. This is something, okay, so this is something that I've heard about, I've read about, people talk about, but then you actually see it and they're actually doing it, and then you see them cut it up, and it's just so nasty. It's so unnatural. It's not meat. It's not food. It's chemical stuff. And I hate this because I love cold cuts. I guess I'm sure some of them are okay. But just the stuff that they put in there, the consistency of it and how they reconstitute it, and oh man, it's nasty. It's so disgusting. I really hope this kind of stuff gets more and more unpopular and go back to more of a natural diet of some sort anyway. Less processed foods, fewer seed oils and stuff. That's something I don't know a whole lot about, but I've been hearing a lot about it. And I've experienced it myself, just how seed oils are so bad for you. And even a little bit, if you're cutting out seed oils, it really makes a difference. You really come to notice it. And then if you have them again, you realize, oh, wow, they really affect me badly. And when you're having them all the time, you just don't even notice. You just get used to feeling nasty. It's just the norm. It's the status quo. When you actually cut them out, you have a cleaner diet. Man, it makes a difference when you have some of it, and your reaction to it. It's just is you get used to feeling good, and then you have something like some seed oils, and it just you feel awful right away. That's just something I wanted to share because it came across my feed, and it goes with how glad I am that that this is more coming to light. I hope RFK makes a difference here, and that there's a movement that's behind this that will see some gradual changes. And here's another picture to illustrate this. This is a picture of the ingredients and French fries from McDonald's. I can't tell you the last time I had French fries from McDonald's, but ingredients wise, it says before ingredients were potatoes, beef tallow, and salt. And now it's potatoes, vegetable oil, canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, hydrogenated soybean oil, those seed oils we were talking about, natural beef flavor, wheat and milk derivatives, dextrose, sodium acid, pyrose phosphate to maintain color, salt, natural beef flavor contains hydrolyzed wheat and hydrolyzed milk as starting ingredients. I don't know what that is. But anyway, you can see it there. It's just all of these extra ingredients and this stuff that is not good for us. So hopefully there can be some changes in all of this nonsense, all of the stuff that's getting put in people's bodies. And hopefully and I hope there's some changes with regard to vaccines, at least some accountability. I'm not settled in my mind about all of the vaccines. I know this is a very divisive thing. Because I've talked to people that are for some of them, but not in the quantity and not the really bad ones. Like I can hear the comments coming already that I could say that. I definitely not the mRNA stuff, but I've heard good arguments about some of the vaccines that they're good. I don't know a whole lot about that, but here's another one that I just came across. Has anybody heard about this one? Because there's more attention being called to vaccines and their problems, but this isn't the first time, obviously. This fella says Dr. Bradstreet said vaccines cause autism. And the FDA in 2015 raided his office, and he was found dead in a river 2 days later. Anybody else hear about this story? It was in 2015. I'd never heard of it. I was in the seminary, obviously. This is the first time I've heard his name, Dr. Bradstreet. But I'm not surprised the way Big Pharma handles these things and develops vaccines and the effects of them. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of dead bodies down that rabbit hole. Hopefully there's a shift. That's another thing. Hope and pray that there's a change in these companies and in medicine and in food, etc. But anyway, just some things I wanted to bring up there and share with you. Probably most of my viewers know a lot more about this stuff than I do. But these are just some things I came across. There's this culture of death and sickness and ugliness and just ungodliness and filth that's in indecency that's just so pervasive. And God willing, there will continue to be a shift away from that stuff and towards more of God's natural order, the way things should be in society. It's going to take a long time, but we can help in that little by little, one person at a time, one family at a time. All right, let me move on here to some comments from last week's video. Now, I was driving a lot this past week, so I didn't really get to responding to people's comments, and I wanted to respond to some of them. I really enjoyed everybody that made comments. 40 comments is pretty fantastic for our little video. And I wanted to address a couple of them. First of all, Last Hope, always deriding Ohioans. Of course, an Ohioan would like spiders. I am not representative of all Ohioans in this matter, obviously, because a lot of Ohioans don't like spiders. Maybe they have more sense than I do, but not all spiders are evil. You should be more accepting of these wonderful creatures that God made that are so unique and have served such an important purpose. Okay, moving on. I wanted to have a serious response to this one because it was a good comment. It's from I Am Not Afraid I Was Born to Do This. And the comment reads, I am confused that people didn't know their government was stealing from them. Who is it that is putting this kind of trust into a government? Perhaps this is the root of all problems, that people put their faith into man, not God. You would trust Caesar to do what is best for the people. Caesar does what is best for Rome. Did Henry VIII do what was best for the people or what was best for himself? He cut off the head of anyone who tried to steal. Okay, so this is the thing I want to respond to. First and foremost, the government that we have here in the United States, I think, I'm not entirely sure, but I think this viewer is from Canada, if I remember some of the previous comments. If not, I apologize. But in this country, it's just so big. It's so massive. As a majority, an overwhelming majority, I think, of Americans haven't trusted the government for a long time. All the circles I've been in, anyway, haven't trusted the government. This is what I grew up with, understanding that there's all of these horrible things going on. How did we not know all this money was being wasted? It's because we have such a massive bureaucracy in our government. The establishment is so huge, and there's no accountability, and nobody knows what's going on. There's just been this establishment there, the swamp as they call it, that's been there for so long, and the way they do things. We have such a massive country. It's so huge. I know other countries are huge. Canada's huge, etc. But it's just such a massive country. And I wouldn't say that people didn't know that this was going on. We knew it was going on. There's no other way that we have so much debt and so many people and such high taxes. We knew there was waste, but we didn't have the receipts for it. I think that's why there's so much attention and so much, I don't know, shock and awe or outrage or whatever now, is because we're actually seeing where it was going. We knew it was being wasted. We knew it was going to fund Planned Parenthood and all of these woke agendas, but now we're actually seeing the receipts. And so it's a big deal now. And we're commenting on it. We're talking about it just because we actually have visibility and accountability here. At least we have visibility to say, this is where the money went. This is where it was going to. And that's why this is such a hot topic now. We knew it was happening. We didn't trust the government, but now we're actually getting to see it. So I wanted to respond to that because there is so little trust in our government over here, at least among people that have any common sense or have their eyes open. People that are just listening to just mainstream media, sure, they'd be shocked or surprised by this. But conservatives in the U.S. have known this forever. But I wanted to respond to that comment there. We knew the government was stealing from us. We just didn't have the receipts. Christy Hilliard had a very, very long comment. I wanted to thank you for that. That was very well thought out and very interesting to hear that lengthy feedback here. I'm not going to read it through here because it's very long, but it was very, very well thought out, talking about Gaza and some of those other things. And I wanted to say with regard to that, as with so many of these things, it's just so hard to know what to believe. There's so many different sources of information and different takes on things, and we don't know these people. We don't really know what's going on. And I was sharing my perspective on it last week that that this isn't in Israel's best interest, and Netanyahu was surprised. And I'm not too sure about that anymore. I listened to a podcast, or at least a section of a podcast by Dave Smith on this. And if you don't know who Dave Smith is, I think he's a comedian. He has a podcast. That's how I came across him in having a debate with somebody. And he's a libertarian. I don't listen to him often, but sometimes I do. Because the Israel stuff is very interesting, his take on it, because he is a Jew. He's Jewish, he's a libertarian, and he is very, very against what Israel has been doing and how the U.S. is funding Israel and all that other stuff. I listened to his take on the whole Gaza thing, and his take was that it's absolutely pro-Israel, and it's definitely what they want, and that it's getting the Palestinian people out of there and not letting them come back. So when I listened to that, my perspective on it certainly shifted. I still don't know one way or the other, 100%. I still think Trump is just wanting peace, but maybe there's people advising him to do this that have Israel's interests in their foremost. That's probable. Maybe. I don't know. It's just one of those things that's just hard to know what to think about something like this, because it's so messy. There's so many things that are convoluted in this issue. But I wanted to thank you for that great comment. And Scott mentioning this too, really unsure about the Trump-Palestine idea. If he starts talking about building the biggest, most beautiful temple there, I know we've got a problem. And yes, absolutely. That's certainly something to be aware of. But, if it's God's time, it's God's time. We know the story about Julian the Apostate, the Roman emperor that apostatized from Christianity, and then to prove Christ wrong, tried to build the temple. It wasn't God's time. And there were earthquakes and fire and all these other things broke out, and people died, and they eventually had to abandon building that temple. It was prophesied that it wouldn't come until, closer to the end of the world, or when the Antichrist comes or whatever. And they tried to do it too soon, and God confounded their plans. So, yes, I agree with you, Scott, 100%. If that comes about, then we know exactly what the intentions are, who's behind the plot. But if it's not God's will, it won't happen. If it is God's will, it will happen. So one way or the other, God's will be done. But good comment. I certainly am like-minded there. David McCormick, another parishioner of mine. It's nice getting these comments from my parishioners. He says, I tend to think that the Trump and Gaza Strip plan is all about consolidating the unipolar world order. Goes along with 15-minute smart cities. I would count Trump as a pawn, just like all public leaders, leading us to a new world order eventually, with the Novus Ordo morphing into the world religion. It's a really good comment. Thank you for that. And I think a lot of people are very on their guard on this issue. And probably most people agree with you on that. But maybe not. I don't know. Because I think that Trump, perhaps he is unwittingly a pawn of the New World Order, or of whatever, all of the forces behind that. But if he is a pawn, I think he's unwittingly so, because I think that he is opposed to the globalist agenda. I think. I don't know. I don't know on this matter. And it's really hard to know one way or the other, I think. And I can already hear the comments saying, it's so clear, it's so simple, he's obviously a part of it. I don't know, because I think that he wants what's good for America, and he's more concerned with that. And the globalists hate him. The globalists are scared of him. The globalists hate his plans because they interfere with theirs. So that's my take on it anyway. I don't think that he wants that globalist agenda to happen. Again, could be totally wrong on that, but that's my take. Good comment. Somebody, I'm sure a lot of people were thinking that. I think a lot of our viewers here would agree with that. But if Trump is a pawn, and this is part of the plan, I think it's unwitting. That's my humble opinion on the matter. Couple other good comments here. And I want to end this segment here with responding to this one comment from Rick Grimes, that he's going to do Israel's New World Order's bidding. Why is this so hard to understand? We've had a couple comments here from Rick Grimes. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for watching our videos. I do appreciate that. And appreciate you sharing your opinion on the matter, as you have on a number of occasions. And I want to talk about this for a minute or 10. He's going to do Israel's bidding. Why is this so hard to understand? Why is this so hard to understand? And again, I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the commentary. This was my growing up, traditional Catholic, sedevacantist. Growing up, I always heard about the New World Order. I always heard about the globalist agenda. I always heard about the communists. I heard about this my whole life. This is not something that's new to me by any means. As a kid, as a teenager, especially, I don't know about when I was a little kid, can't remember, but when I was a teenager especially, I didn't talk much, I listened a lot, and I enjoyed listening to older people's conversation. I know, it's shocking. People that know me now would be like, what? You didn't talk much? Yeah, believe it or not, I didn't, but I like to listen, and I like to hear about what was going on in the world and what people's takes on it. And a lot of what I heard growing up was the end of the world is coming. It's going to be here soon. Probably. The globalists are running things, and there's no way to get around it. There's no way to fight back. They're taking over. And the UN and the EU that's something that informed my worldview from the time I was a kid. And it wasn't harmful. I don't think it was harmful. I think like hearing it from my parents or something, it was measured. What I got out of it was not an extreme thing or whatever. It was just being aware of what's going on in the world and these forces at work. So it's not like I can't understand that there's a new world order and that there are these powerful politicians and that there are psyops and other these things. Look, that was my beginning of understanding the world, my political worldview or whatever, is understanding that. And we know that eventually there's going to be the Antichrist, and there's going to be this Messiah who's going to be recognized as such by pretty much the whole world. We know that's going to come at some point, but we don't know when. And my shift in view, or where my thinking is now, is I'm cautiously optimistic, but ready for the worst. I am just as ready to be proved wrong one way or another, that things are going to be good going forward or get better at least, or that things are going to get really bad really fast. I could see either happening. And I'm not pig-headed about it. I'm not stubborn about it, because there's just so little that I know. And I've seen a lot of evidence pointing to this, and I've seen a lot of evidence pointing to that. I don't know. I can understand that Trump is a pawn, that Trump is tricking us all. I can understand that. And I can see where people are coming from with that. But I don't believe it. Again, if I'm proved wrong, I won't be surprised. It's just I'm trying to make an informed decision about it, and not, how should I say, not jump too quickly to a conclusion. Because if you reach a conclusion and you're sure of that conclusion, and you don't have an open mind with regard to that, then every bit of information that you take in is going to confirm your conclusion. That's why I try to keep an open mind. That's why I try to be optimistic, but also not afraid to admit that there are real problems with people that I'm supporting politically. As a Catholic, I mean, that's something we're very used to. We're used to living in a society where there's all of these problems and evils that we know are wrong, but we still are trying to improve things, and we're not going to improve things by not having any part in politics and not having any part in society. I don't think we'll be able to do much good that way. But so to this viewer and to others, yeah, everything could be a psyop. Everything could be, the globalist agenda is right around the corner, that they're going to make it happen. That could very well be. But what if all of these plans of the globalists, all the plans of the Freemasons, all of these plans that they have that they're going to take over, these things are going to be implemented by 2030 or 2050 or whatever. What if all of these plans come to nothing? Because God says it's not time yet. What if through the intercession of the Mother of God, Our Lady of Fatima, what if through people's prayers and sacrifices, what was about to come upon us 20 years ago was averted by the prayers and sacrifices of the faithful? What if that was the case? I don't know, can't prove it, but I'm open to the possibility. What if all of these plans come to an end for now? What if this doesn't happen for another 500 years? It could be. I don't know. I don't think that's too likely, but it's a possibility. And I would rather have that mindset going forward. And I'm ready to respond when it's obvious that that's not the case, because I'm ready and I'm trying to be open about it and not convinced one way or the other. But I have seen adverse effects when people have too much of the end is nigh and everything's going to come crashing down. Now, some people handle it just fine. That's great. But I have seen others that don't handle it well, and it affects family and friends adversely and doesn't help them to become saints, doesn't help them to glorify God, doesn't help them to live their faith. It leads to more despair and discouragement. I'm not saying that's you, Mr. Grimes. I'm just saying I've seen it before in others. And that's something that I don't want to be. And with my personality, that's something I'm inclined to, and I have to fight against the discouragement or melancholy or whatever else. My response to that is I can't go too far down certain rabbit holes, not because I don't want to see the truth, but because we don't have to. And we can't even be sure that all of those things are accurate or the way that they're portrayed are accurate. When we have the church as our guide in matters of faith and morals, there's truth there. There's enough hard realities to face there for me to spend the rest of my life trying to live according to that truth and trying to live up to that standard that Christ has given to us. That's enough for me to focus on and to go down that rabbit hole as much as I can and try to live according to that. So that's the mindset that I want to have. If I don't know as much as other people about what Trump has done or Trump has said or the connections or the deep connections or what they're planning with AI or what they're planning with this or that, part of it is because, me personally, I don't handle that too well. And I've seen the problems that others have had in dealing with it. And I want to live my faith as best I can. And to me, I need to have more of a positive mindset, more of a hopeful not positive mindset like the New Age stuff. That's just ridiculous. But I mean more of a hopeful mindset and the possibility that all of these plans and machinations of the enemies of God, even in the next 20 years or 30 years, they're going to be unraveled and come to nothing. So I wanted to bring that up because I have had that mindset for so long that everything's going to come crashing down and that's going to happen in my lifetime. And I'm not going to see 50 or not going to see 70. And fine, great, wonderful. But sufficient for the day are the evils thereof. And I don't want to miss the opportunities of the present by being too certain about the evils of the future. And that's something I've seen before. So I'm open, I'm ready for whatever outcome may come, because I know that God will give us all that's necessary to get through it, whatever may come, good or bad, worse or better. So I have my confidence in God. I have my hope in God and not in man, not in my understanding of how things are going to go, not in this research or that research or this proof or that proof, because so many of these things can be twisted. I was having this conversation the other day over breakfast with some of my parishioners, and some of this came up about, well, some people don't like RFK and some people think Trump is the devil and some people think the complete opposite of both of those. And we're talking about J.D. Vance, and I brought up how I know some people that know him personally and how they spoke very, very highly of him. They could be wrong. A lot of people could be wrong. But, I have been the subject of smears. So, some people that really didn't like me, and this one individual even wrote some stuff online that basically saying that, I'm this, corrupt, and I'm a Protestant, and I'm this, and really twisted some things, took some information and twisted it in such a way that is very, very much misrepresented. And they've done the same, many, many people have done the same thing about my bishop, Bishop Ivarunas, who is one of the people I respect the most, if not the most, that I know. He has a fallen human nature too. We all have our faults and failings. Nobody's perfect. But for somebody that has all of that, the good that he has done and whatever, I respect him so much. But there's people that absolutely hate him and misrepresent the things he's done and the things he's said to an extreme. And having been the subject of, in a very, very small way, having been the subject of that, I can see how bits of information can be twisted. I've seen how words or happenings can be twisted to fit a certain narrative. The left is really good about doing that, but there are many other people that do this about people like J.D. Vance or others. And I think there's some of that going on here. And I know there's some of that going on here. To what extent? No clue. I have no clue. But it is happening. And as I said, having been the subject of such a thing, I want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt before I come to an absolute judgment. And ultimately, by their fruits you will know them. By their fruits you will know them. In time will tell. I think it was a pretty good bet saying that he's a good guy and that he's really trying to do what's right by God, by the country. That's my read on things, for whatever that's worth, which isn't much. But that's my read on things. But I'm open to being proven otherwise. I want it to be proven by facts, by actions, by events, not by other things. I don't know if any of this is making sense. It kind of makes sense in my brain, but, well, that's a dangerous place. Anyway, I'm going to end that topic there, and I'm going to end with our new segment here. That is something I very much enjoy, which is music. I had this idea last weekend when I was driving of having an end to each show being something musical, something about classical music or sacred music or something like that, because that's something I very, very much enjoy and has had a big impact on my life. Now, Eric, man, we just went full circle here with Eric. On his last video this week, check it out over on The Traditionalists, good show. He ended with, I want a tribute to my grandfather, and then he played a recording of them singing a hymn, Holy God, we praise thy name. And I promise you, you have my word, I did not get this idea from Eric. Really, I did not get this idea from Eric, I promise. I had this thought on the weekend while I was driving, and I didn't even know Eric was putting out this show with this content in it, with the music and the singing and stuff. So it's not from Eric. This good idea did not come from Eric, although he had the same idea. So great minds think alike, I guess. So I guess we'll have to give Eric that compliment there. Anyway, that aside, this is something that's very important to me, because when I was a teenager, just a little backstory, if anybody wants to know, I don't know. When I was a teenager, parents sent me to Omaha, Nebraska, to Modern Day Academy there with Bishop Ivrunis and the sisters and the priests there, Father Gronenthal and others, Father Gregory, and that's where I met Kevin Davis and the Davis family and Father Philip, his brother, and Dominic and William and all the others. Okay. So wonderful, wonderful people and wonderful school, wonderful experience. And there's two people that kind of made a difference in my mind with regard to classical music. Because at the time I was 15, and I had I'd listened to, we grew up with a lot of country music, and I was at 7th and 8th grade with some influences. I was kind of listening to more popular music of the day, which is not so great. Nothing really, really bad, but just more of the heavy rock or things like that never appealed to me at all. But more of, not really pop, but something like that. Anyway, more of the popular mainstream music of the day, and it wasn't great. And then I went to Omaha, and I remember one day one of the priests had to leave for sick call or something like that, and seminarian came to substitute to cover our class for 45 minutes, and it was Father Heine's brother Andreas, who was instrumental in getting us going with our men's choir, got that started, and it was really inspiring to me. And we had class, and then the for the end of the class, for, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes, he was like, okay, I'm not going to try to do his German accent, but he said this in a German accent. Basically, it's really good to listen to classical music, and it's really good for you. And, sometimes it's just really good to just listen. And so he got out a CD player, and he sat down, and he kind of sat there with his leg and just kind of sat there for 10 minutes or something, and had us all be very quiet and just listen to classical music. It's like, wow, that's kind of cool. This is good music. And of course I'd listened to classical music before, but as a teenager, it's like, really? Classical music? I want something cool. But that was somebody I really respected, Andreas, and that really made an impression on me. I'm like, wow, that's so true. This is really nice. It is really good. So that's one person I want to mention. And the second person I want to mention is Sister Gertrude. They're in Omaha. She's been there for many, many years. I was high school. She taught grammar and literature to us, and also choir. And what wonderful teacher. And from her also, she would play classical music in the background if we're taking quizzes or things like that, and would talk about it. And through her came to a deeper appreciation of classical music. And that summer, my sophomore year, following summer, I made a resolution, this classical music is good for you. And I'm only going to listen to classical music this summer. I'm not going to listen to any popular music, any mainstream music, the radio, or anything like that. I'm just going to listen to classical music. And I got 2 CDs. This was back before we didn't have any MP3 players or Apple, whatever. And I got 2 CDs from a secondhand store, just random classical music CDs. And I basically listened to these 2 or 3 CDs all summer, just basically like on repeat. That's because it's all the music I had. And something flipped. I really think something flipped in my brain that had a really good effect. And so my next school year, that's pretty much all I listened to. That was my alarm clock in the morning. That was what I listened to while I was studying. And Sister Gertrude had made, for each of us high school students, she was doing a music appreciation class. And she made 5 CDs with various classical music, different composers and pieces. And man, I just love those. And that's all I listened to. And I think it had a really, really good influence on the brain and on me. And that's not even talking about choir and sacred music and singing at Mass and singing in the church. It was just something we did growing up at home. My mom was a choir director, and pretty much our whole family was in the choir. Something we did every Sunday. So that had a really, really good impact on me. But just speaking about classical music, something that I think is so, so good for the brain, so good for the mind, the soul. And that's why I thought for my weekly videos, I'm going to end the segment playing some classical music. And maybe a certain piece that I like for the week or for the day, or sharing. That's how we're going to end this one today. So the one that I picked for today is a piece composed by Handel, George Frederick Handel, one of my favorites. It's called Zadok the Priest. And I thought this would be very fitting because we're about to get to Septuagesima. And during Septuagesima until Easter, through Lent and until Easter, in the church's liturgy, whether it's in the Mass or the Divine Office, we do not say the word Alleluia. That's something we say it at the end of the Divine Office on Saturday. We say it like 4 times or something to get the Alleluias out in the liturgy. And then we don't say it again until Easter, Midnight Mass, where we sing that beautiful chant of the Alleluia and sing it 3 times. So I thought this one would be really good. It's called Zadok the Priest. And it is, let me pull this up here. It is performed by the Westminster Abbey Choir. This is quite good. And Zadok the Priest, this is Old Testament, of course. If you look this up, if you're not familiar, Zadok the Priest was a high priest in the Old Testament under King David and King Solomon. His name appears in the Old Testament and means righteous or just in Hebrew. During Absalom's rebellion against his father, King David, Zadok supported David and helped him to escape Jerusalem. He anointed Solomon the king, and this is what this song is about. Zadok the priest, anointing Solomon king. So that's how we're going to end today's video, playing this. And if you don't want to listen to this, you can just end the video now. It's a beautiful piece. It starts out really quiet, and it builds gradually, and then it has this crescendo a couple minutes in, and has all these Alleluias at the end. It's a beautiful piece, about 5 minutes long. But we're going to play it here. And just a little warning, I'm not too sure about what the volume will be like on this, but there is a mark. It's about a minute in. It comes really loud. Just be ready with your volume control if you're listening to this. Zadok the Priest by the Westminster Abbey Choir. That's such a beautiful piece. I've listened to that so many times. What a wonderful way to end this program today. Whenever I hear beautiful music like that, it reminds me that one day, if we stay faithful to Christ, if we save our soul, we'll get to be in heaven with God forever. And no earthly composer, no earthly choir, no earthly orchestra, nothing on this earth can prepare us to even begin to imagine what the music in heaven will be, with the choirs of angels, with the saints in heaven. That's such a beautiful thing to think about. And that's what beautiful music like this reminds me of. And in spite of whatever happens in this world, if we stay faithful to Christ, if we stay faithful to God, heaven will be the reward forever. So on that note, I'm going to end this show today. I hope you got something out of this show. We'll be back here next week. Thanks for listening. God bless. Godspeed.